I wanted to ask you, Ben, about Declan Rice to Arsenal. I know it's a story which is up and down and inside out. On Thursday night, Gooners were panicking because DiMarzio said there was confidence and a deal was getting close, but there's been no official bid. The ex-West Ham employee, who is a very credible person at West Ham, has said he still prefers Arsenal. What's going on with Declan Rice? Will this deal cost Arsenal over £100 million? Talk to us, Ben Jacobs, please, because I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's structure, not number. So if it's at 100, the structure will be better for Arsenal. If it's under 100, then ultimately they'll probably have to pay more in the guaranteed fee or more up front. The West Ham starting position has been that they want a guaranteed fee of somewhere in the region of 85 million, and they want a big chunk of that up front, and they want gettable add-ons, and you would expect that on the West Ham side. Arsenal have obviously done what Arsenal always do. They've made multiple bids. I can't think of many big transfers where Arsenal have had a first bid accepted. And you have to understand that that's not because Arsenal never get a first bid accepted. It's because Arsenal's first bid is almost indicative. And if you've been following the Manchester United takeover, the indicative offers in that didn't mean that much. They were markers, they were non-binding. And this is what Arsenal do. They make multiple bids. So you have to respect that strategy. And I know it was frustrating with Mudryk. And also, let's not forget, they tried a couple of times for Rafinha before Chelsea had a bid accepted, and then he subsequently went to Barcelona. So it's funny how fans forget the past. Fans don't understand often their club strategy. And then they're surprised. How on earth have we bid a first bid and it's so low and it's got rejected? Well, you should have learned that this is how your club work. They always make 2 or 3 bids. They always do it this way. They're always disciplined and they're always prepared to walk away. But with Rice, it feels a little bit different in the sense that the deal is getting closer. Arsenal will bid a third time, and there is a willingness from all parties to get this done. Rice, as I've said many times, would ideally like to stay in London. It won't be the only factor, but that's part of his thinking. He's spoken to Arteta. He knows he's going to get the automatic game time when fit. And he's also been told, even though it's not going to happen overnight, that he's a future captain potentially at the football club. You can't guarantee it. Arsenal have got a captain, but that's another thing in Rice's thinking. He wants to lead. He's led at West Ham. He's not going to walk into Manchester City and have any chance really in the next few years, I don't think, of being the next captain. Of course, one interesting thing is Manchester City's captain has left. So there will be a new captain at Manchester City, but I don't see it being Declan Rice if they're successful from the word go. I don't think that's in Pep Guardiola's thinking. And at the time we're recording this, Manchester City haven't bid either. So this is in Arsenal's hands. This is about Arsenal getting a deal done with West Ham. And I think eventually it is going to be 95 to 100 million, and the final number will all depend upon the structure. And I think Arsenal are going to have to go up by at least 5 million in their guaranteed fee, if not slightly more. And I think that there's an acceptance on Arsenal's part of that. They don't want to walk away empty-handed here. So Rice does want Arsenal. Personal terms are not a problem. And this is where Arsenal fans can have a little bit of comfort. Because if Arsenal are to get a deal with West Ham and Manchester City are going to get a deal with West Ham, then obviously naturally it would then come down to which one does the player prefer. And I think even if Manchester City agree a deal, as long as Arsenal agree a deal, I still think that Declan Rice will end up picking Arsenal over Manchester City. And perhaps this is why Manchester City have hesitated from saying they would bid to not bidding, because they're also aware that the player has a strong desire to join Arsenal. So now Arsenal need to agree a deal with West Ham. That's the only thing that matters in all of this. There is a third bid incoming, might go in today, certainly by midweek. And once that third bid is officially tabled, we'll wait and see whether or not that's good enough, because if it's good enough, then Declan Rice will be an Arsenal player. And I think that Manchester City know that. It's not to say that they're giving up, but the Manchester City strategy has to be to agree a deal with Arsenal first. And if they top Arsenal's number, then the ball becomes in Arsenal's court, as with Mudryk. Are they prepared to go any higher? But Man City can't agree a deal yet with West Ham until they've bid. So we have to understand whether they're going to bid. And if Arsenal's third bid goes in before Manchester City even bid, then again, all signs tell you that all parties feel that Declan Rice will end up at Arsenal.
Very interesting insight there, as you say. And I think that the lack of bid from City Because generally, when you see news that comes out that they're looking at a player from top journalists like yourself, like David Ornstein, there's normally a bid that subsequently comes very quickly. But it's been 5 days now since the Ornstein tweet that broke that kind of confirmed that what everybody knew, that they were interested, and nothing has progressed. And as you've told us, I don't know how many times in the last couple of years, Ben, clubs tend to not bid unless they are categorically sure a player is going to agree to join them, which is why I know the phrase changes from journalist to journalist, but from a basic term, for me as a football fan, if your club's bidding, typically they've agreed to the personal terms, or they're willing to agree to them and sign them later on down the line. So maybe Man City's bid is not forthcoming because the player has said, as long as Arsenal match your bid or better it, I'm joining them. And be very interesting to see what City do in the coming days surrounding this deal. It really, really will be. But as you said, a lot of Arsenal fans got very frustrated on Thursday night, throwing their toys out, throwing their toys out their pram. And I got why, because, I think they're so jaded because of the situation with Caicedo and Mihailo Mudryk in January and are worried about it happening again. But it feels like things are in a confident place right there with Rice. In terms of, there's actually a super chat here about Kai Havertz. It said, Arsenal getting Havertz is us getting a player with Champions League experience, which most of the Arsenal squad doesn't have. Clever signing, in my opinion. You look at Havertz, you look at the Timber deal that looks like it's going to happen. Declan Rice, they're still the favourites for on leading that race. How good is, from your point of view as a football person, how good a summer do you think this is looking like being for Arsenal in terms of their ability next year to take this title away from Man City?
Well, I think Arsenal will want to consolidate. Of course, you don't go from having the lead they had and then the unfortunate wobble from Arsenal's perspective to saying that you don't want to challenge for the Premier League. But I also think deep down, even if they don't admit it publicly, Arsenal will be absolutely delighted if they just consolidate their place in the top four. And if they can close the gap on Manchester City, then it becomes a bonus. But we need to wait also and see what other teams do, because Chelsea are going to be stronger, Liverpool are going to be stronger, Newcastle might be stronger as well. So it's a tough one, because right now we don't know the final squads. But if you're looking at paper and if you're adding a signing or two that is looking likely for each club, then there's really not much on paper heading into the new season between Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United. So it's really difficult to understand at this point whether Arsenal are going to take a step forwards, and what is a step forwards. Is a step forwards winning the Premier League because many feel they should have won it and got over the line last season, or is a step forwards for Arsenal comfortably qualifying for the Champions League and getting 80 plus points? But you might need 90, 95 to win the Premier League. And I think it's the latter, but I understand why Arsenal fans might be unenthused by that suggestion. And then when you look at the window for Arsenal, I think Havertz will prove to be a really good bit of business, genuinely. There's a lot of debate over the fee. And of course, he isn't joining as a proven goal scorer, but he's the right fit. And I think that Arteta will get the best out of him. And in the same way that Arsenal fans kind of were unhappy they didn't get Mudryk, and Trossard somehow seemed underwhelming, actually, I think Trossard's been a good signing for Arsenal. So if Arsenal get Rice, then job done. If they then add Timber plus Havertz, it's already a good window. And this is where maybe Chelsea in January have warped the thinking in the market. Because if you come out of a summer window with 4 or 5 senior signings, that's a really busy window. If you come out of the summer window with £250 million of spending, that's record spending. If you come out of the summer window breaking your club record, that's ambition. So what more do people expect? If Arsenal sign Jurrien Timber for 40, 50 million, Kai Havertz for potentially up to 67.5 million, then add Rice for, let's just call it 100 million package, and then bring in another midfielder, get their outgoings resolved, work out what's going on with Balogun. He could be sold for 35 million. Keep an eye on Crystal Palace, but maybe pre-season will change that. If they continue to get the best out of Trossard, then maybe get a left back. And imagine if that was a fullback like João Cancelo, then you're in a position where that's incredible. That's a dream window. That's £250 million or more. That's 4 or 5 players. That's the spine of a team with a mixture of depth players, players for the future, and automatic starters. And yet people will always say, we want more, we want more, we want more. Why are we not going in for another forward? Why are we not going in for another midfielder? How have we not moved for this player that another club's moved for? Liverpool fans are guilty of this as well. Everyone's saying, God, why are Liverpool so slow and quiet? They've pulled off the best bit of business this window so far, getting Alexis McAllister for 35 million. And yet people want more and more and more. So if Arsenal get Rice, regardless of anything else that happens in the window, they'll have had a decent window. And if they add any more than Rice, it for me anyway, I don't know whether Arsenal fans disagree, it's bordering on a dream window.